All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call this town council meeting to order for Thursday, May 16th. I begin by acknowledging that we are in the unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq, and we will stand for the singing of O Canada. All right. Record of attendance. We have some absent with regrets. If we could have somebody make the motion, please.
Move to excuse Councilor Lesser and Mayor Mood from the meeting this evening.
Seconded? Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest, bearing in mind, of course, that you can declare at the time that the item comes up. Approval of agenda. Can I have someone approve the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Bell Hatfield, seconded by Deputy Mayor Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? All right, next, approval of minutes. We begin with Town Council, April 11th, 2024. I have a motion, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Committee of the Whole, April 25th, 2024. Can I have an approval on that? Okay. Approved by Councillor Bell. Seconder? Steve. Councillor Steve. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Thank you. Special Town Council for April 25th. Can I have an approval for that? Councillor Dares, seconded. Councillor Hatfield, all in favor? Thank you. And finally, Committee of the Whole for May 2nd, 2024. Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Deputy Mayor Steve Barry. All in favor? Contrary minded? And passed. All right, we're moving to the public hearing part of the agenda for today. There's two items. We're going to start with electric fences, the land use bylaw amendments, to approve second reading of the proposed use bylaw amendments to prohibit electric fences in the town of Yarmouth. Make sure that that's on. Okay, it's all good? Okay. So as per usual, we will ask if there's anyone here who would like to speak to this item. And you may come up, approach the microphone, just tell us who you are. And thank you very much for being here.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing the public input. I'm Peggy Green. I live in town, Albert Street and Cottage Lane right at the moment, hopefully just at Cottage Lane soon. That being said, and I do not, in full disclosure, I do not have an electric fence. I have read everything that is online with the committee report as well as the proposed bylaw. And I would respectfully ask council to carefully consider banning outright the electric fences in town. I, again, read the report as far as the usual usage for an electric fence in corralling cattle. In our town, we have an opposite problem. We're not looking after corralling livestock. We're trying to keep some animals away. And I realize that we do have a deer management committee that is working, and I think that I am hopeful over time there will be some potential solutions to at least reducing the problem. In the meantime, we have a significant one, more so in some areas of town than others, and I recognize that. But I think that you can't talk about an electric fence without talking about deer. So I think that that's the piece that I really wanted to come and put on the table. I've watched the population change over time. I used to be able to grow things on my back deck on Albert Street without any nibbling, any problem. And last year I had deer on my back deck eating my tomatoes. So if you're going to try to grow, and I've come, sorry, I come looking like this, I've come from the garden club plant sale. So I can tell you it's a hot topic there as well. Everybody wants to know, are these deer-resistant plants? I don't want to digress too far, but I guess my concern is to ban the electric fences outright, I think is a little kind of sledgehammerish, shall I say. I would very much prefer something along the lines of an appropriate setback from a property line, and then making sure that there is signage showing that there is such a thing in existence, and then the property owner being responsible for what happens on their property. So that would be my preference and my choice to see the council consider. I also wanted to just say that over the last couple of weeks, this has been a little bit of a hot agenda for me, and I've been talking to a lot of different people to get their input. And of course, we are all talking about the deer and damage to whether it's gardens or whether it's to our vegetables. But I had some interesting perspectives the other day from two young families, both of whom are saying, how am I going to keep the deer out of our backyard because the children can't play in the backyard anymore? There is too much deer droppings, and what about the ticks? And I have to figure out a way to keep the deer out. Again, doing my research, an electric fence properly done, number one, is not going to electrocute anybody. And number two, is much, much cheaper than having to put 8+ foot fencing, which would be what would be required. And actually, it's double fencing that is recommended if it's not electric, because deer can leap, as we know, wonderful distances. But if it's a double fence, they don't understand depth perception. So the double fence throws them off. But that's a hugely expensive undertaking. That's my say. Please consider carefully with just completely banning them. And maybe it's something that, as the Deer Management Committee comes up with potential solutions, then we can come back and readdress the idea of, how much do they need to get used in town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peggy. Anybody else like to speak to this issue?
I believe you all know who I am, Charlie. I have to plead with you to allow us to have an electric fence around our gardens. I've been involved with gardening all my life, and I have never, well, it's only the last about 5 years that we've had the deer problem to the extent that they eat everything you grow. It's a useless endeavor without something to keep them out. Either roof it over or put up an electric fence. I used the advice of the Lands and Forestry people and put a simple electric fence after having some failures with an 8-foot fence. They were jumping over that. And, I didn't know what to do. To quit gardening was just beyond something I could do. But anyway, the electric fence has worked. And I ask that until something can be done with the deer problem, that any restriction, as long as we stay away from the street line, stay on our own property with the electric fence, I would ask that we be able to continue. I don't think it's polite to have one along the edge of the street and, you know, somebody could accidentally bump into it and get a shock. I know of nobody that's ever been killed or even seriously injured by such a thing as an electric fence. I think more people have been spooked by the spark plug on a car. The voltage there is a lot more. I've had a few experiences with that, with ignition. Anyway, not to belabor it, I just ask that we be able to continue so we can have the garden. The neighbors love it. The grandchildren love it. You know, I think this is important. We're losing our gardens. Very few people are growing a row crop type of garden as we were brought up to do, try and get our vegetables for the winter. One of the things I cherished the most was to have a 5-year-old grandson take me on a tour of my son's garden. You know, the fact that he knew all the plants, because I've had adults come in my yard and don't recognize corn, turnips. It's getting that bad. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this item?
I had sent my letter in, so I don't know that I have to. You got it there, so that's my say right there.
And that's fine, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I just wanted to just make myself appear, yes.
Okay, thank you. Would I have to ask 3 times, would anybody else like to speak to this item? Would anybody else like to speak to this item? And would anybody else like to speak to this item? And hearing none, then we close that item and open it up for the next public hearing. Next public hearing is on 239 Forest Street. It's about a development agreement to approve second reading to enter into a development agreement with the owner of 239 Forest Street to permit an accessory building within a front yard setback area. Would anybody like to speak to this item? Anybody like to speak to this item? Anybody like to speak to this item? And hearing none, we close off that one as well. And that closes off the public hearing part of this meeting. And thank you all so much for contributing. It's much appreciated. We move on to business arising. Next is 10A, and it is a vending bylaw announcement or amendment. The recommended motion is that council approve second reading to amend the vending bylaw to permit busking in the town at specified locations where performers are permitted to have small amplifiers complying with the noise bylaw. Any discussion? Would anybody like to make a motion? Councillor Dares.
Yes. So moved.
Seconded by Councillor Hatfield. All right. Yep.
So, yeah, I am in favor of the bylaw. I just wanted to confirm, in fact, that there is a power option at the park on the waterfront. I've been to the area a couple times to look for it. I know that there is power to the footlights in front of the clock tower, but I wasn't able to locate a plug that you plug into. So I think if we're going to include it in the bylaw, then it would be, the onus would be on us to make sure that there is a power source there.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. We can find out about that quickly enough. We'll contact Todd with the park. And in all honesty, even though the bylaw specifies, excuse me, 2 locations, both locations were specified not only because of the power, but because of the fact that you could have amplification there and that not be an issue bothering anyone else, kind of. And so, yeah, no problem. We'll make sure that's taken care of. Would anybody else like to discuss this issue? All right, I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? Contrary minded? So moved. Thank you very much. Next is the electric fences, 10B. The recommended motion that council approves second reading to the proposed land use bylaw amendments to prohibit electric fences in the town of Yarmouth. Councillor Dares. Oh, you shut it off. Yeah. Okay, well, let's have the motion. Can we have the motion? Councillor Bell?
Can I ask a procedural
You
question?
certainly can.
If I want to, if I want to table the motion, if I want to table the motion, does it have to be on the floor in order to table it?
It's more of an order question than it is anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, the motion would have to be moved and seconded, and then
Yep.
if there was a motion to table it, and that motion was seconded, it would go to immediate vote, and if it was,
Okay,
the motion was to approve the table, it would be to the next meeting.
that's what I thought, yeah.
All right, moved by Councillor Dare, seconded by,
Right.
I'm going to assume, Councillor Bell. And please.
So I think that having the wisdom of time that we've heard from the community in a fairly united voice to encourage us to think not just about electric fences that constrain livestock, but also electric fences that protect property from deer. And given that we are in the midst, at the very beginning of a municipal planning strategy review, and that we have a deer management committee that is actively addressing the deer issue, until such time as those matters are concluded, I think it's appropriate to indefinitely table this motion. And I would make that a motion.
Sorry, I turned mine off. Moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to it?
I'm in favor of the motion, and I just wanted to say that it's always exciting, I think, that when we have an issue come to the table and the public do come forward and send letters, it's so helpful to council to get that information and feedback, because there's often so much that we're not aware of. And the issue came to us because of a electric fence that was in a public area by a sidewalk that was of concern. And I personally had no idea that there were all these other little private, electric fences in people's backyards protecting their gardens. And I think, for me, the fact that we weren't aware of them tells me that that wasn't a problem, So we need to look at this issue differently, so, yes.
I agree with that. Procedurally, before we get any further, we have two motions on.
So you deal with the motion to table, and if that passes, then the matter is.
Is taken care of from there. Okay. All right. Councillor?
Oh, thank you. So I just wanted to comment about the work that the planner did in bringing this matter to the planning committee, because, it was a thorough and exhaustive survey of the environment across Canada. And he brought a recommendation to the planning committee that was consistent with what was asked of him, and I really appreciate the work he did. And the only question that I have is this: if we table this motion, would we have the capacity to bring it back to council if circumstances changed?
Yes, you'd have the ability to bring it back. There is a clock that has started with the advertisement for the public hearing tonight. So 6 months pass, then it automatically is dead,
Okay,
okay?
perfect. Okay,
But when
thank you.
it's tabled to the next council,
Is
right?
it?
It's not tabled.
Okay.
Okay.
See, for me, and this is just my humble opinion, I know that we're just about to embark on a fairly long process, but I do feel that this should be addressed in some way, shape, or form. I'd almost rather see it, and I'm probably throwing a wrench here, so I apologize. I'd rather see it go back to staff with a somewhat more specific ask or mandate, if you will, asking them to take a look at the idea of setbacks and the idea of it being exposed in a public area or somewhere on a roadside. I would really like to see that addressed, especially considering the fact that when it comes right down to it, this process, this LUB and MPS review is going to take 2 years. And so I would like to see it addressed as far as that goes. You're right, I absolutely do not want to see an outright ban after seeing how many people actually use it. But I would like the safety concerns at least considered. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Councillor Dares.
Yeah, and I don't know that we fully took into consideration the extent of the deer problem, which is a recent development. It's not something that's gone on for years and years. But with proper setbacks, with signage, with timers, with the new technology that's available,
Yep.
it's quite safe, I think. It's not a safety issue to have that. And when we consider the issues of food security, especially for a lot of people that depend on their gardens for food security, for those that just like to garden and it's good for their mental health and their physical health, I think it's incumbent on us to revisit this issue and find a compromise.
Yeah, I agree.
But I agree that we should do that in the short term, not in the long term.
100%. However, that's not the motion that's on the table.
Right, so, so if you want to table it, as Greg says, that's to the next council meeting. We could do that, pick up the discussion there if you wish about referring it back to staff, you want to give more thought, or you defeat the motion to table it, and now you're dealing with the original motion, you could have a motion to refer it back to staff at that point, with the specific instruction that you don't want an outright ban, you want them to look at measures to allow, in a safe manner, electric fences.
Well, council, what's your wish on that?
I think that's good.
All right. So what we've agreed to do is defeat the tabling, then defeat the motion, defeat the tabling,
Yeah.
and
And so we can move
then
it forward.
change the motion.
You okay with
so
that, Bill?
we can send it back to staff. Okay. Just so we're clear as mud.
Do the first step.
Yeah. So can I have a vote on the tabling? All those in favor? All those opposed? Nay. Okay. Nay. So it's defeated. Next.
So they have a motion on the floor, Greg, to approve second reading. If they want to refer it back to staff,
Right, you'd have to defeat that motion and make another motion.
Okay.
Refer it back to staff.
All right. So we still have a motion on the floor then, and that motion is the actual approval. So can I have a motion? The motion's made. Let's call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. So that is defeated. Now, can we have a motion to send it back to staff and with the mandates that were mentioned?
I'll make a motion to send the electric fence bylaw back to staff with a request for consideration of appropriate setbacks to ensure that electric fences are not permissible on any private or public boundary in the town of Yarmouth.
That sounds right. Seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Hatfield. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? All right. It was messy, but we did it.
Good solution.
oh, it's good, it's good.
Thank you.
Listen to the public.
Thank you all. All right. I'm planning on this one being much easier. The recommended motion that council approve second reading to enter into the development agreement with the owner of 239 Forest Street to permit an accessory building within a front yard setback area. Can I have a motion first? So moved by and seconded. Moved by Councillor Dare, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, no, wait, there is discussion.
I just wanted to say, you know, for public interest, that that this is a very unusual property where the house is actually tucked almost in back of a neighboring house, and it's an L-shaped lot, and it is consistent with common sense, if not with our planning bylaw when it comes to setbacks, but it is certainly consistent with common sense to allow this through a development agreement, so.
It certainly is. Yep, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? So moved. Thank you very much. Next up, operational budget. Here comes some reading. Recommended motion that council accept a budget with revenues in the amount of $20,374,259 and expenses of $20,359,259 for a surplus of $15,000 for its general operations for the year ending March 31st, 2025, which provides for the following rates. Residential, $1.69 per $100 of assessment. Commercial property, $4.31 per $100 of assessment. Resource general, $1.69 per $100 of assessment. Farmland, $2.16 per acre. Garbage collection and processing, residential, $205 per dwelling unit, up to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per building. Buildings in excess of 4 dwelling units are deemed commercial and at the owner's expense. Retail and other commercial type operators are deemed commercial and at the owner's expense. Pollution control charges, that's sewer, quarterly base rate, 5/8 of an inch, that's $36.51. 3/4 is $54.77. 1 inch, $91.29. 1.5, $182.57. 2 inch, $292.11. $292.11. 3 inches, $584.23. 4 inches, $912.85. 6 inches, $1,825.70, and 8 inch, $3,286.27. Effluent rate, 4.617 per 1,000 imperial gallons. Interest at the rate of 14% per annum will be charged on delinquent accounts. Depreciation, that council approves a transfer to the capital fund in the amount of $2.2 million. The chief administrative officer will implement the inherent recommendations, administer and control the operating budget, and report to council as appropriate. I was waiting for that. You have the motion? Thank you. Seconder? Seconder? Second. Sure. Councillor Heather. Discussion. We have discussed this for the public, general public. We've discussed this quite a bit at great length over the course of more than a month. So don't think we're doing this without a lot of sober second thought. Councillor Hatfield.
Yeah, it has been a process and always is. And, thank you to the finance staff for the prodigious amount of work they do to make it sensible to us, because it is a $20 million budget. And that every time I see the number, it boggles my mind. But I did want to, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when I did do them, I think that it's about a 4% increase over last year. Is that about right? About 4%. And given the cost of living increases that we've seen, and I think the Canadian Consumer Price Index or whatever inflation rate has gone up by around that much in the last year. So we are not blowing the budget. We're kind of on track with what we're seeing across the Federation. So I just wanted to make that observation. There we are.
Thank you. Anyone else? Your mic is on. It's been on for a while, but I wasn't sure. Would anybody else like to comment? Then I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor? Contrary minded? So moved. Great job, may I say, to both you, CAO, and of course, our financial guy, Jerry Varon, who did an amazing job.
Director of Finance handles the budget process, and my input is less and less every year, it seems, but he did a fantastic job, and thank you to council for the work you did to get us where we are. Thank you.
May I also echo what Bell said? You know, these numbers are not the simplest in the entire world to go through, and he makes it very understandable. He's extremely patient with us. We ask an awful lot of questions, which is good, but he always has very thoughtful and very, very good answers, which is fantastic. So it is much appreciated. Next is the tax grants. The recommended motion is that council approve the 2024-25 tax grants as presented. And these have had its own share of discussion as well, may I add. And we had a certain budget and asked for more money on the budget, an increase of $20,000, and adjusted the tax grants up from there. Can I have a motion on the floor for that? Councillor Bell, second. Deputy Mayor Steve. Would anybody like to comment on the tax grants? All right, let's call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. New business, IT support services. The recommended motion that council award the contract for IT support services to the lowest bidder, G23 Technologies, for $550 per week. Second? Councillor Barry? Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? All right, so moved. 11B is grants to organizations. This is more of an FYI, I believe.
Mr. Chair, the attached to the agenda tonight are the applications for operating grants, and now that the budget is approved, we can confirm the amount that you have to work with. So we would like to, and I'm sure the organizations would like to, have the operating grants approved at the June council meeting. So if we could have our spreadsheets filled out and returned to Lindsay, I think we said June 11th, then that would give her just enough time to get them ready and on the agenda for the June council meeting. So do your best. Good luck. I don't envy you.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. So the crying and gnashing of teeth should come at least by the 9th. It's never an easy, yeah, it's never an easy process either. It is not. All right, next motion, or the next item, is the Yarmouth Library Board. And the recommended motion that council appoint Councillor Bell Hatfield as the town representative on the Library Management Board, replacing Councillor Wade Cleveland. Thank you. Seconder? And if I may comment on this, I'm bailing because of workload issues. I have a full-time job, and I also am involved, as you know, in many, many things. And as the projects that I'm dealing with are getting larger and larger, it's getting harder and harder to spread myself into 13 or 14 different pieces. And so I was actually handed a book by my boss. It was called Essentialism, and he said, you need to read this. And it's about taking more than you can chew. And so I gave that a lot of thought and started thinking of where other responsibilities could lie. And I reached out to Bell for this, particularly because I felt that she would fit very nicely in that board. It's a very important one, and one I care greatly about, and I know she kind of agrees and feels the same as I do. And so I asked her privately if it would be okay, and she said she would. So thank you very much. I haven't told, they probably know now, but I haven't told the library board, but I will reach out to them first thing in the morning if you approve this, because you haven't voted yet. All those in favor? Contrary minded? I was waiting for Bell to say nay, but thank you. Next, Integrated Youth Services Letter of Support. And the recommended motion that council send a letter of support for an integrated youth services site in Yarmouth. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Hatfield again. Any comments?
Just that it's kind of a no-brainer. We need those services located in Yarmouth, and anything that the council can do to support the application, I think we need to do.
Yeah, we need to pull as much as we can to make this happen. Thank you all. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Thank you. Next, appointment of development officer. The recommended motion that council appoint Martin Beck as a development officer to administer subdivision applications and to provide coverage for the primary development officer when away from the office for extended periods of time. Moved by Councillor Heather Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Bell Hatfield. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Thank you, guys. We move to reports and council advisory committees. And we begin with Committee of the Whole, and I'll ask Councillor Dares to read this, if you could, with your mic on. Thank you.
Thank you. The first one is the bursary policy. The recommended motion is the council adopt the bursary policy as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary. Next.
Recommended motion, the council land bank the properties at 1 Forest Street and 228 Main Street and prepare them for future development through establishing appropriate property boundaries and proceeding with demolition of the building.
Second?
This one may require some explanation for the public.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think we should make our CAO do that.
So the properties that are referenced in the motion are what are probably commonly known in the community as the Tourist Bureau, the VIC, Visitor Information Center, and this assembly of properties stretches from Water Street up to Main Street. The building was turned over to the town recently. It was provincial property, but it was originally turned over to the province on the condition that came back to us if it ever ceased to be used as a visitor information center. So they've turned it back to us for $1, and we've had staff go in and assess the building itself. The building was an interesting building, a unique building when it was built, but it was built as a seasonal building. It wasn't built as a four-season building, and it's older in age as well. And so after looking at it and considering if we had other uses for it, which we didn't, it wasn't the best suited building for any use that we could identify. The recommendation is to demolish the building, take that off the site because to any potential future use, it's an obstacle. So we'll remove the building and then we'll do a little bit of survey work. So there's a street right-of-way that cuts right through the middle of the property, starting from kind of the end of Hawthorne Street, close to that anyway, across the property to the back of what I'm guessing is a former motel that's currently an apartment building. So we would close that, it is closed, but we would remove that as a street right-of-way, so we consolidate the land. We would also move the property line on Water Street, which now is kind of, well, where you'd expect it to be, kind of along the sidewalk. But the Waterfront Development Corporation years ago did improvements to create a little pedestrian plaza down there. It's kind of a nice feature, but it does encroach on the property line as it is right now. So as long as we're changing property boundaries, we'll make sure that that is entirely in public property. And then we'll have a piece of property that we'll land bank. And I can tell you that we've had some discussions with people and that are kicking tires, looking at development, and that is a nice piece of property to have in our inventory as an option. It is an excellent location for the right project, and I think it you know, people seem to take you a little more seriously when you have, you know, attractive properties as opposed to, you know, we have a scattering of very small properties and odd shaped properties around the town. But that's one that I think for the right project, we'll be in a good position to negotiate if and when that comes along. So that's the work that we would undertake, to remove the building, do some surveying, have it ready to go. But I'm not recommending that we market it. I think the market will come to us.
Perfect sense. All right, the motion's on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? So moved. Next.
Recommended motion is that council approve the recommended changes to the structure of recruitment and nominations committee as suggested by the Wren Board of Directors with the amendment that 3, clarify that the elected official can be from any municipality. And just by way of explanation, that was just a wording in the application. It was meant to be an elected official from any municipality. That was the intent.
Yes. Seconder. Deputy Mayor, all those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? So moved.
Recommended motion, the council directs staff to send the attached brief to Mark and Teresa Horton, owners of 23 Alma Street, and place their correspondence on file.
Seconder. Councillor Bell, all those in favor? Contrary minded? Okay. And finally,
Recommended motion that council proceed with the development of a concept plan and feasibility analysis of the relocation of the Sweeney Museum to 275 Main Street with consideration along with other uses.
Seconder. Deputy Mayor, all those in favor? Contrary minded? All right, thank you very much, everybody. Next comes Planning Advisory, and I'll take care of that. LUB amendments. Recommended motion that council approve, first reading. It's quite a difference. Council approve first reading to the proposed land use bylaw amendments designed to introduce and enable sponsorship recognition signs in the town of Yarmouth. Second. Councillor Dares, all in favor? Contrary minded? Thank you. Next is from Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. Recommended motion that council appoint Mason Robichaud, Wanda Doucette, and Stephanie Tuplin to a 3-year term, and Nancy Ann Ellis, Alden Matthew, Chuck Smith, and Jessica Burke to a 2-year term on the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Thank you. And from the Police Advisory Board, recommended motion that council address the concerns of the 911 misdials received from the hospital and/or correspond with them.
Question.
Yes.
I'm just confused as to what the motion is in regards to.
I think I can answer your question. So over the last 2 years, the town detachment has been documenting the number of 911 calls that they're responding to, and it is consistently about 60% of the 911 calls are the hospital. And it's not people calling because they're in distress, it's because they're misdialing. Because the first number in order to get an outside line is 9. And if they're dialing 9 and then a long distance number, it can very easily then become 911. And the police detachment commander has initiated conversations with the hospital, but there has not been an abatement in the frequency of the 911 calls. So he brought it up at the Police Advisory Committee, and that's why we're bringing it forward here to council to see whether or not we can, our staff can engage with the hospital staff just to assess, what is the blockage in changing the systems so that this doesn't continue to happen, because I don't think 9 has to be the first number. It probably could be changed relatively easily, but nobody is taking it as a responsibility to manage. So the request was that maybe we could increase the urgency with which it's dealt.
Okay, now I understand. I know that in the past, for example, when they went to the 749 exchange, that if you used a payphone, which is, I guess, a dinosaur these days, but the hospital's the only one that still has a payphone, I believe. But if you dialed 749-1136, for example, without putting your coin in, the only numbers that they would recognize would be the 911.
All right.
And so that's probably the issue. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion's on the floor. It's been seconded. All in favor? Contrary minded? So moved. Thank you all very much. Reports for information. Does anybody have anything? All good? Okay. Questions for committee chairs? Does anybody have anything there?
I have a question, but I just wanted to kind of do an update. This week we had a waste check meeting, which Councillor Dares and I attended, and we were given notice that there is upcoming changes in the electronic disposal process, and that will start June the 1st. This has been a provincial change, and Waste Check hasn't been given a lot of notice, so it will be kind of fast for people to kind of learn this. Up to this point, as we know, we could drop off our TVs, VCRs, computers to the Enviro depot, and that was all basically that could go there, maybe a few other things. As of June 1st, that list of items to be dropped at the environmental depot will increase. One of the big things will be your countertop appliances, so anything kind of that sits on your countertop, toasters, blenders, a coffee maker, microwave, anything kind of electronic that you cook with will now go to the environmental depot. Items such as fans and heaters and dehumidifiers can be dropped off there. Personal care appliances such as hair dryers, curling irons, shavers, irons I'm saying can be dropped, but they will be, because they will not be allowed in the garbage. So, and they won't be picked up by the hauler. Devices for measuring time and weight, such as alarm clocks, wall clocks, bathroom scales, food and luggage scales, floor or carpet care appliances, such as floor vacuums, carpet cleaners, robotic vacuums, phones, cordless, corded, answering machines, any of those items, electronic readers, video game devices. Yeah, and this is not inclusive. There are others. There will be a thing put up on the website, on the Waste Check website, to let people know. I don't think it is up yet. I checked yesterday and I didn't see it. But just to kind of give notice to people that as we're cleaning up in the spring and putting those kinds of things out to the roadside, they might get left behind, and this might be the reason why. So they haven't been given a lot of notice, and that's unfortunate. Waste Check just got notice themselves. So, but June the 1st, you will see a change. So if people are asking and complaining, then that's what's happened.
Sounds like we're going to need a pretty large marketing campaign for that one, because that's a lot of stuff, and it's
Change.
yeah.
Yeah, and I do
Basically, just throw
understand that there are already containers set up at the Environment Depot for this already. So you
Okay.
don't have to wait to June 1st, but
Yeah.
June 1st will be kind of the cutoff date as to when the hauler is not supposed to pick it up.
Wow. That certainly is a lot. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think we're going to have to. Yeah. I see trouble brewing. Anyone?
Waste Check will be communicating that on social media and with other advertising agent. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Good news for the speed at which we're filling up our landfill cells, though.
Certainly is.
That's a lot of stuff out of the waste stream. I mean, I guess it's still waste, but at least it will be.
Yeah, it's a different stream. Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, it's a nuisance, but it's great.
All right. Thank you, guys. Approval of invoices. Can I have a motion that the various invoices be approved for payment? Councillor Dares, seconded. Counselor Bell, what the heck? All in favor? Contrary minded? Always like saying nay to that one, just because. Date of next meeting. Are we on schedule?
I believe we are. Just pop ahead here. So, 13th? So June 13th is the Thursday, the regular date of town council. We're on schedule for that. I would ask that we could have just a quick little discussion about the cow meeting, next week's cow meeting. We'd sent out a couple of proposals. There was a lot of moving parts here with council. So do we just want to stick with the date that, the regular date?
The regular date being the 23rd, you mean? 23rd. I can do the 23rd. The other ones I couldn't. So for me, it's good, but is it a problem for anyone else? Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. 22nd is out for me as well. So shall we go with the 23rd? Is everybody okay with that? No,
That's
May.
next week.
That's
Next
next week. No, sorry.
I'll be away, but you guys will be all right.
Are you sure?
Quite sure.
All right.
Just saying.
The 23rd? Okay.
So the mayor will still be away,
Okay.
and we don't know about Derek's health. That's a wait and see. You're don't know, and you're a no. Okay. So why don't we wait? Like, let's just hold it on, keep it on the 23rd. We'll get a status update on folks, and if there's not going to be a quorum, we'll look to squeeze a date in before the June council meeting.
Yeah,
It's a difficult time.
I know. It's extremely busy, and it's
And
seems to be getting.
we'll look at what's coming up on the agenda as well in terms of the urgency of having a Cal meeting. If we don't have anything that's time sensitive, then we might recommend that we just forego it and pick it up again in June. But we'll plan for next week at the regular date and see where it goes.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
All right. So that's the dates of the next meeting, perhaps, with the question mark at the back of it. Can I have a motion to go on camera?
Very short.
Okay.